Hey guys, in this video I wanted to do a little bit of a voiceover for my weekly prehab program, which is something that I've been doing for the last 6 to 9 months, at least once a week. In total, the whole thing takes me about an hour and a half, and it's just aimed at keeping all of my joints, in particular the ones that are a bit more vulnerable in gymnastics, like the wrists, elbows, shoulders, knees and ankles, just keeping those joints really healthy and mobile so that I can keep doing gymnastics for the next few years. As I get into the later stages of my career, I think that this is something that is really benefiting me. And I think that if you are somebody who is like me, getting to the end of their career, is kind of in their 20s or their 30s, or has got joint problems at the moment, or has had joint problems in the past, then I would definitely encourage trying to slot some prehabilitation into your weekly program. And hopefully this video gives you a few ideas. So typically I start my session with a little bit of a run. I think running is really beneficial for staying lean. It's good for maintaining my fitness during off season if I'm not doing floor routines and stuff, and it just gets my body and my joints and muscles really loose and warm for the prehab work that I'm going to do later. Then I'll do a handstand. I think handstand is a skill that I lose very quickly. So if I go more than a couple of days without doing a handstand, I then really struggle to balance. So I try and do handstand as often as possible. And I'll typically hold that for about 20 or 30 seconds, just feeling that balance and that alignment before I move on to my foam rolling. So grab my foam roller and just roll out any areas that are feeling sore or tight before I start my stretching and my prehab work. Typically I'll be rolling my back, my lats, my quads, my calves, and probably my biceps and the front of my shoulders as well. Because they're the easiest parts of the body to roll, they're convenient, but also because those parts of the body do take a bit of a hammering with the floor vault and rings work, which I am typically doing on a weekly basis. So once I've been for my run and I've done my foam rolling, my body is now loose and warm and ready to do a little maintenance stretch. So I'm not aiming to improve my flexibility necessarily here. I'm just starting at the top of my body and working down from the neck all the way down to the ankles, just holding stretches for maybe between 15 and 30 seconds, just keeping the joints and muscles really loose and fresh. You can see I started with the neck, and now I'm just loosening up my shoulders, ready for upper body mobility. This one is brilliant stretch for shoulder flexion and also for the triceps, and I do the same stretch with straight arms as well. And then moving on to shoulder extension. I like to do most, if not all, stretches with a bent limb first and then with a straight limb. So I do that with my upper body stretches, and I'll do that with the legs later as well. Now we've got arm adduction and external rotation stretch, really good for the rotator cuffs. And arm abduction, stretching the pecs. Again, all of these things just keeping my pecs and my shoulders and my wrists and my entire upper body just loose and fresh and ready for ring strength and swinging work. And here's the wrists, working the wrists through a variety of different planes. So working wrist extension, wrist flexion, wrist rotation, trying to maintain good balance in the joint. And I like to do this stretch with my hands curled as well, because I think it mimics false grip quite nicely and shortens the tendon. Now going into the lower body mobility, just stretching the outside of the hip first. I find this stretch is really useful for maintaining good balance at the knee, and also stretching the quads, and of course, in the interest of balance, stretching the hamstrings as well. Very useful for pike presses to handstand, straddle presses to handstand, and making a good pike shape in somersaults as well. So it's a really important one for me. And straddle fold, and then just warming up and opening up the hips, ready for splits as well. I do left leg splits in my floor routine. So left leg splits is something that I really try and maintain. And a good box splits is really helpful for things like straddle planche as well. So I try to keep my left leg splits and my box splits as close to the floor as possible. And then just in the interest of being well-rounded, I'll do right leg splits as well. Obviously, I think it's not a great thing if you've got one split flat on the floor and one split a mile away. Ankles have always been something that is a struggle for me, so I'll always stretch the ankles, of course. If you do this stretch with bent legs, it kind of stretches the soleus muscle and the Achilles, and then with a straight leg, targets more the calf muscle belly, and then stretching the top of the feet and the toe point as well, so that you stretch both sides of the joint. And then I'm moving on into my strength and prehabilitation work. So I'm starting with calf raises. I start one leg at a time, and then I'll do both legs together to get a really, really strong contraction. I'm holding a kettlebell there just to make it slightly more challenging. And here's with the feet turned inwards, just because it works the side of the feet a little more. And then I'm using a little resistance band to target the opposite side of the joint again. So this is working the tibialis anterior, and then moving the foot side to side to work the muscles on the outside of the leg. This feels really beneficial and feels like it would definitely prevent ankles rolling and things like that. So I find that a really, really useful one to do. And this one is good for proprioception at the leg. I'm standing on a quite soft cushion with my eyes closed and balancing for 30 seconds. Much, much harder than it looks. And then moving on to upper body prehab. We've got external rotation with a 5 kilogram dumbbell, and then moving on to wrist rotation as well. So a bit like stretching, I'm working the wrist through lots of different movements, doing supination, pronation, and later on you'll see me doing wrist flexion, wrist extension, radial deviation and ulnar deviation as well. So I'm just trying to, rather than work just one plane of movement, keep the entire joint as well rounded as possible and keep all the muscles around that joint very well balanced. As well as protecting the wrist, this is also protecting the forearm and the elbow, which take a real pounding during ring strength work in particular. And for all of these, I'm doing probably between 15 and 50 repetitions, so it's quite high volume work. I tend not to count the reps, I just go until I feel a good burn in the area. And this is kind of end range of motion bicep pulses. I feel like this is really beneficial and really specific for locked arm strength work. It gets your elbow really comfortable in that slightly hyperextended position. And then I do the same with the tricep as well, just to keep good balance of the joint. Okay, so that is my program. Like I said before, I'll typically be holding each of these stretches for about 15 to 30 seconds. And each of those little stabilization and strength exercises I'll be doing for roughly 15 to 50 repetitions, or at least until I feel a good metabolic burn in that area. Yeah, the program itself is not particularly exciting, it's not particularly glamorous, it's not particularly sexy, but I think if it's something that is going to help keep me healthy and allow me to continue to do the sport that I love to do long term, then I think it is well worth the effort to try and do something like this at least once a week. So I hope that it gave you some good ideas. If you've got any comments or questions or suggestions, then please let me know, and I will try my best to get back to you. Cheers.